When I learned of the cancellation, I was shocked and expressed my fear in my voice. "What do you mean there's been a cancellation?" With a voice that betrayed both perplexity and urgent alarm, I asked. I was on the phone at work during my lunch break at the time, and I realized that I had accidentally said more than I meant to, so I quickly lowered my voice. Since I hadn't requested any cancellations, why was this happening? My mind became blank as my thoughts stopped. In sharp contrast to my growing worry, the insurance company woman on the other end of the call remained calm. "According to our records, we received a cancellation request from you, and the procedure has already been completed," she calmly stated. Encouraged by my sister-in-law, Alice, an insurance agent, I had taken out a savings-type life insurance policy. Under pressure to fulfill her high sales goals, she had talked me into choosing a more expensive plan than what was generally offered in the market. I'm Betty, a 42-year-old office woman who shares an apartment with her young daughter and her husband. Everything about today was mayhem from the beginning. Henry, my husband, abruptly announced an overnight work trip and started hurriedly packing his things as soon as he got out of bed. As all of this was going on, our first-grader daughter Linda started crying because she couldn't find her arithmetic textbook. Because of her young age, Linda requires a lot of assistance, and her difficulties exacerbated the day's chaos. In the middle of all this, I wanted Henry would just sort his stuff by himself instead of adding to the chaos by asking where his new socks or travel bag was. With Henry, this year has been very difficult, and I've been thinking about getting a divorce more often. I told Linda that I was upset that they hadn't prepared the night before, and she immediately apologized and offered her sincere regret. "I apologize, Mom. Next time, I'll exercise greater caution." Reassuring her, I said, "It's all right. That was my error. I ought to have checked in with you yesterday." But dealing with Henry was a whole other ballgame. Linda is still young, and we could have saved ourselves from the pandemonium of this morning if Henry had done his homework beforehand. It would have been kind of him to buy new socks for his vacation, or at least organize his old ones. I was really annoyed by Henry's disrespectful comments about requesting new socks for his travels. "I had no idea about your business trip schedule," I said. "Aren't the socks I washed and put away good enough?" I thought it strange that he insisted on buying new socks for every trip, but I didn't voice my thoughts. Though he hadn't mentioned it, his work visits are rare, occurring perhaps once every several months, and this one had undoubtedly been planned well in advance. He ought to have informed me in advance or purchased the new socks on his own if they were necessary. My heart ached to see Linda's tear-streaked face as she begged, "Daddy, Mommy, please stop fighting." I looked over at her. I apologized to Linda. "It's all right. Together, let's locate your textbook." Henry then quietly went back to packing as I assisted Linda in looking through her backpack for her misplaced math textbook. I couldn't resist taking a quick peek at Henry. I saw that he was bringing more laid-back attire for his weekend vacation than for his professional travel. This information sparked previous worries in me and triggered a big red flag. Considering his previous behavior, is Henry having another affair? His previous 2 instances of infidelity proved my concerns weren't baseless. The first occurrence had me on the verge of divorcing Linda just before she was born. Reluctantly, though, I chose to stay after his family intervened and offered heartfelt apologies. His mother and sister especially pleaded with me not to leave him. Then he cheated once again with a person he met on a dating app last year. Henry considers himself discreet since he is usually forthright and rarely nuanced. But in my opinion, his attempts at stealth are sometimes blatant and border on hilarious. When discovered, he once more turned to sobs and excuses. Knowing his customary arrogance, It was both heartbreaking and maddening to see him so modest. I was very clear then, one more mistake, and our marriage would end. As a precaution, I even had him sign preliminary divorce papers and move all our funds into my account. Despite my forgiveness, his lack of connection with Linda and his selfishness had completely destroyed my affections for him. For Linda's sake, I thought we should put off the divorce until she was older. Thank goodness, we immediately located Linda's arithmetic textbook, and she happily headed off to school. Alone with my unease from the morning, I decided not to make lunch and spent my break visiting a neighboring store. I spotted an insurance company advertisement there and realized my policy was about to get a bonus payment. These bonuses are huge incentives for me because of the hefty premiums I pay. I began thinking about what I could get Linda for a bonus, maybe a new fall wardrobe. I went to the bank to check my statement since I was feeling a little better and wanted to make sure the bonus had been deposited. I was shocked to see that the anticipated money was missing. Not only was the anticipated bonus absent from my bank account, but the insurance fee for this month had also not been withdrawn. At first, I was just perplexed by this difference. But remembering Henry and I's tumultuous talk about cancellations this morning, a terrible sensation started to creep in. I was so concerned that I called the insurance company to find out what was going on. I generally dealt with my insurance concerns through my sister-in-law Alice, but she was not in that day, so I spoke with another person. That's when the cancellation confusion came to light. The representative informed me that a cancellation payment had been processed, but I hadn't seen any funds in my account. She insisted that all the paperwork was correct and that the insurance company had adhered to proper procedures, subtly implying that the fault wasn't theirs if the policy was canceled without the owner's knowledge. Firmly, I clarified once again that I had no intention of canceling the policy. I'll follow up with Alice and my husband, but please double-check everything on your end as well, I requested. After making my point clear, I ended the call. Before I knew it, my lunch break was nearly over, and I realized I had neither the time nor the appetite to eat the lunch I had bought, as other concerns weighed heavily on my mind. Feeling the need to address this issue promptly, I informed my boss that I had to leave early and quickly wrapped up my remaining tasks, leaving the office ahead of schedule. I immediately called Henry, wondering if he was genuinely on a business trip or if something else was afoot. "Betty, why are you calling?" "I'm at work," Henry answered after a few rings, his voice tinged with irritation. However, in the background, I could hear lively music, casting doubt on his claim of being at work. "It's absurd that you think you can avoid getting caught," I said, my frustration evident. "Sorry to bother you, but my life insurance was canceled without my knowledge, and there's no record of any cancellation payment. Do you know anything about this? I'm considering contacting the police as it might be a scam." "Ha, calling the police?" Henry replied, then confessed. It was me. I had suspected that Henry and Alice might have been involved in this somehow. When I hinted at getting the authorities involved, Henry quickly confessed, clearly caught off guard. Although I had suspected him, my frustration now erupted. "So it was you. Where's the cancellation payment then?" I demanded. "I used it to help Mom out," Henry replied nonchalantly. "Help out? Did something happen to your mother that she suddenly needed money?" "No, she just mentioned she wanted to go on a family trip for once." I was utterly stunned by his audacious response. "You canceled my life insurance to fund a trip. Was the business trip just a cover?" "Yeah, I'm the beneficiary, so you can't complain, right? We're staying at a luxurious hotel. I'm in the lobby right now, and you wouldn't believe the size of the chandelier here." Henry seemed to think it was acceptable since he had been caught, even bragging about the details as if to impress me. What's with this attitude? I countered, infuriated. I have plenty of complaints. Why would you cancel the insurance without telling me? I've been paying those premiums out of my salary. You should be able to cover your trip expenses. Ah, it's so annoying, Henry replied dismissively. But it's the money I get if something happens to you, right? So it's my money. You're healthy and not in any danger, so we can just start paying the premiums again. I was dumbfounded by Henry's flawed reasoning. But the terms change as you get older, and the premiums increase. Do you not understand that? Well, I'm not the one paying for it, he said. Henry's careless disregard only added to my frustration. Do your parents know about this, that you canceled my life insurance without telling me? Didn't your father say anything? And Alice is involved in this too, right? You and Alice forged my signature, didn't you? Yeah, Mom and Dad were actually happy about it, he admitted, as if that justified his actions. They thought it was a good idea. It's your fault for controlling all our money. I just wanted to have fun for once, Henry argued, as if the situation was trivial. It's no big deal. We're on a family trip, and everyone's happy. That family includes your parents and Alice, right? Why aren't Linda and I included? Aren't we family too? I asked, my voice tinged with hurt and disbelief. Insurance is meant for emergencies. Henry, shouldn't you have discussed using it for a trip with me first? But you knew I would say no. You and Linda are always together. It's fine for me to spend time with my real family once in a while, he retorted. Plus, Alice was planning to sign you up for a new life insurance policy, so it's a win-win. I can't believe you're not embarrassed by these excuses. Almost like a child who didn't tell because he knew I'd object. That's exactly why you didn't tell me. You knew I'd be upset. It's so frustrating. If you're going to keep complaining, maybe I should just get a divorce. Henry continued, his tone unusually bold, perhaps bolstered by being at a tourist spot. Understood, I replied sharply before hanging up. Be prepared. I'm going to make sure Henry and his family face the consequences. I muttered to myself, my patience finally snapping. Henry had taken my forgiveness for granted too many times. Despite my threats of divorce, I had once thought my in-laws were decent people. Even though Alice had pressured me into an expensive life insurance policy, I believed she wasn't acting with malice. But decent people don't secretly cancel their daughter-in-law's life insurance to fund personal pleasures. Like husband, like family, I thought grimly. I was done with all of them. I went straight to visit the lawyer, clutching the divorce papers Henry had filled out earlier as if they were a talisman. I filed for divorce immediately. Afterward, I picked up Linda from after-school care. On our way home, I gently explained the situation to her. She was initially surprised, but I reassured her, emphasizing that our well-being was my top priority. Linda seemed to grasp the situation after I took the time to explain everything in detail. Once we arrived home, she asked, "So, Daddy isn't coming home anymore?" "He won't be home tonight because he's staying somewhere else." "We're getting divorced, so we'll be living apart," I answered her cautiously, trying to gauge her understanding and feelings. "Then let's start cleaning up now, quickly," she suggested. "What's wrong?" I asked, a bit confused by her urgency. "We're separated from Dad, right? Mom, you don't have to cry anymore." "I hate it when Dad makes you upset," Linda explained. "Did you always tell us to stop fighting because you were worried about me being sad?" Of course, I admitted. I had planned to avoid divorce for Linda's sake, but it seemed she had been suppressing her true feelings all along. She often intervened in our arguments because she was concerned about me. Daddy never plays with me, even on his days off. When I try to talk to him, he just says, "Be quiet, go away." Like this morning, he only uses me to say mean things to you. I've been so sad. I love you, Mom. She smiled at me, and her smile warmed my heart. Seeing Linda's understanding of the situation and her resolve was heart-wrenching and brought tears to my eyes. Her insights into how Henry had prioritized himself over us both and her fed-up stance made it clear that she too was ready for a change. I understand, sweetheart. I'm sorry for putting you through such difficult times. From now on, it will be just the two of us, but I promise to take good care of you. I love you so much. Yay. Linda's joyful exclamation filled me with determination. I vowed never to let her feel sad again. While Linda worked on her homework beside me, I busied myself with tasks like consulting a lawyer and researching real estate agents and moving companies. I then reached out to my parents to discuss our next steps and gather their support, ensuring that Linda and I would have a strong network as we moved forward. When I explained the situation to my parents, their immediate response was, "Come back home right away." This way, Linda won't have to change schools. My father also offered to borrow a truck from a friend to help us move our things. The next morning, I informed the landlord, the school, and the families in Linda's commuting group that we would be relocating to my parents' house, briefly explaining the circumstances. I plan to handle the school's detailed paperwork later and call my workplace to request a day off for the next day. I wanted to complete most of the preparations before Henry returned. By the time Henry got back the next day, my parents had arrived, and we swiftly moved our belongings to their home. Everything was settled except for Henry's things, which were still in the apartment. I left a note that read, "We are divorced. We are strangers now," and exited the apartment. I imagine Henry's shock at finding us gone and felt a wave of relief and satisfaction. The smooth execution of this divorce was thanks to the experience gained during Henry's previous affair. I had warned him then, next time there will be no discussion. We're getting divorced. We had agreed that I would retain custody of all marital assets. With that in mind, Linda and I began our new life at my parents' home. Later, my frantic mother-in-law called. She must have reached out because I had blocked Henry's number. Knowing Henry's tendency to cry easily, despite his usual bravado, I pictured him probably sobbing away. "What are you thinking, divorcing my son when he hasn't even cheated this time?" she yelled, her voice so loud it hurt my ears. I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. "Betty, it's not too late. Apologize to my son right now. He's been crying nonstop because he's so upset. Aren't you embarrassed to make such a fuss over this? Apologize." Me? Why? I was so taken aback by her words that I blurted out, "Who are you?" My mother-in-law clearly didn't expect such a response from me, and her words suddenly stopped. My own sharp response surprised me. "Well, yes, it's me, your mother-in-law. Come on, Betty, what's wrong with you? You're not losing your mind, are you? You're still young." "No, I only have one mother. Are you some kind of scam artist?" I replied half jokingly yet pointedly, not providing her with the acknowledgement she expected. Given that we were now divorced and effectively strangers, and considering their past actions, like canceling my life insurance without my permission, I saw no reason to engage in a serious conversation. It seemed fitting to maintain a somewhat detached demeanor. "Don't joke around, Betty. If you're going to act like this, we have our own ways of dealing with things," she warned, her voice seething with anger. "And what exactly can you do?" I countered, skepticism threading through my words. We agreed that if there was another issue, I'd get a divorce immediately, and Henry himself told me over the phone that he wanted a divorce. My firm stance made her pause, and I seized the opportunity to press further. If you wanted to go on a trip, you should have consulted me first. Instead, you committed a crime. Unauthorized cancellation of life insurance can be considered forgery, punishable by imprisonment. I'm ready to pursue this thoroughly. Henry's family has never had financial difficulties that I am aware of, so their actions seemed not just impetuous, but also dangerous. That was the exact reason I was unable to overlook it. Hold on, we are not criminals. Please accept my apology. Let's discuss, she said, her tone abruptly changing with the prospect of potential incarceration. However, it was too late for debates or excuses. I cut the call short, banned my in-laws' numbers, and distanced myself from any more unhealthy relationships. With this firm decision, Linda and I were able to move on from the upheavals of the past and begin a new chapter of calm and stability. Subsequently, I learned that Henry became a hermit after quitting his work and withdrawing from social interactions due to his extreme shock at the divorce. Regarding the life insurance fiasco, we were able to settle it outside of court using a mechanism intended for just these kinds of insurance conflicts. In the end, the insurance firm fired my sister-in-law, which even made the little press. My in-laws' activities made them the focus of gossip in the area, and family members chastised them for their bad judgment and shameful behavior, which caused them to become socially isolated. Henry and my sister-in-law didn't seem to be doing well financially, since they were both unemployed. At my parents' house, Linda and I were enjoying a contented and free existence. My daughter had faced difficulties as a result of the circumstance, but I remained dedicated to giving her the love and attention she deserved. With the love of my parents as our pillar, we were able to find stability and serenity in this new chapter of our life, and we were progressively starting again without the upheaval of the past.